Dios le bendiga a toda la gente, amén. Dios te bendiga en este momento, amén, que estamos empezando, amén, nuestro programa familiar, amén. Bendiciones, iglesia, a todas aquellas personas que son parte de la iglesia, las que no son parte de la iglesia, también Dios le bendiga grandemente. Y vamos a dar inicio, amén, a nuestro programa el día de hoy. Queremos invitar a todos, amén, invite a su familia, a sus hijos, lo que estén en su casa, amén, que vengamos a adorar el santo nombre de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, amén. Así es que sonría, Cristo le ama, amén. Y queremos empezar, amén, en leer un salmo para honra y gloria de Dios. Dice el libro de Salmo, amén, capítulo 57, dice: ten misericordia de mí, oh Dios, ten misericordia de mí, porque en ti ha confiado mi alma, y en la sombra de tus alas me ampararé hasta que pasen los quebrantos. Clamaré al Dios altísimo, al Dios que me favorece. Él enviará de los cielos y me salvará de la infamia del que me acosa. Amén. Qué hermoso salmo para empezar en esta noche. Amén. Porque estamos amparados en las alas de Dios. Oramos todos en este momento. Te invito a que ores junto conmigo y vamos a elevar esta oración unánime. Padre, le damos gracias en esta hora, Jesús. Gracias, Dios mío, por permitirnos, Dios, hacer, Dios mío, este programa, Dios, en vivo, Dios mío, para que muchos de mis hermanos, Dios mío, mucha gente, Dios, que nos está escuchando, Dios, a través de estas redes sociales, aquí, Dios mío, en Estados Unidos, en otros países, Dios, que nos están escuchando, bendícelos, Dios mío. Dios mío, que esa palabra, Dios, que se va a hablar el día de hoy, Dios mío, que esos cantos, Dios, vayan, Dios mío, conforme, Dios, a tu corazón y que penetren, Dios mío, en lo más profundo de nuestro corazón, Dios mío. En el nombre de Jesús te lo pedimos, Dios, y declaramos, Dios mío, una bendición sobre tu pueblo en el nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén. Dios te bendiga, hermano. Dios te bendiga mucho. Dios te bendiga, amén, en todo momento. Amén. Y vamos a cantarle al Señor en este momento.
Levanto mis manos, aunque no tenga fuerzas. Levanto mis manos, aunque tenga 1000 problemas. Cuando levanto mis manos, comienzo a sentir una unción que me hace cantar. Cuando levanto mis manos, comienzo a sentir el fuego. Cuando levanto mis manos, mis cargas se van. Nuevas fuerzas tú me das. Todo esto es posible. Todo esto es posible cuando levanto mis manos. Oh, cuando levanto mis manos, comienzo a sentir una unción que me hace cantar. Cuando levanto mis manos, comienzo a sentir el fuego. Cuando levanto mis manos, mis cargas se van. nuevas fuerzas tú me das. Y todo esto es posible, todo esto es posible cuando levanto mis manos. Escóndeme en tus alas, Señor, y cúbreme con tu mano de poder. Cuando hay tempestad y ruge el mar, y en tus brazos, Dios, yo voy a estar. Padre, eres rey sobre el mar, y quieto estaré, sé que eres Dios. And hide me now under your wings, and cover me within your mighty hands. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. Cuando hay tempestad y ruge el mar, y en tus brazos, Dios, yo voy a estar. Padre, eres rey sobre el mar, y quieto estaré, sé que eres Dios. Y quieto estaré, sé que eres Dios.
Even though the tides are high and everything is raging around us, the Bible says very clearly that in the midst of the turbulence, in the midst of the storm or circumstance and battles of our lives, we know that God is present in our lives. Blessings, beloved church, and I know that it seems like the days are so long, have been so long since we've been all together at church, and I long for the moment that we can be together, congregating once again, to be able to embrace one another, to hug one another again, and God is covering us under the shadow of His wings, and I believe that the governor is saying certain dates and certain times to reopen, and many places are opening, and that is good. Let's say that there are people that are suffering economically, and so that they're able to recover economically. But in the church, we had to be cautious, we had to be wise, and we don't know, because the governor has says, it's gonna be easy process, it's gonna be a calm process. No, we gotta take it easy, church, as far as being cautious, and being smart. And then we know that the church members, we want to be together, and along for the day, the Sunday or the Wednesday, we will come back again, but we gotta be wise. We gotta be smart. I think the best thing to do is to wait a little while longer. We're gonna continue on doing what we're doing, and wow, this past Wednesday there was a beautiful children's service, and it was such a beautiful program online, so that the little kids, the little children over church and friends. I give thanks to God for those husbands, those wives, those families that they dedicated their time to, and they didn't forget about the little kids, about the children, to bring to them the word of God. That, and let's make sure, parents, families, that you have, service in your home with your kids, with your husbands and wives, with your kids, and don't forget to have that service, at home, so that we don't grow to become accustomed to only that congregating this, and then it's just online. That's it, and that's it's going to be enough for some people. No, the Word of God says that we should not stop. Don't stop congregating, like many people have grown accustomed to doing so. So there we have the importance of congregating, actually physically assisting or attending a church, not just via online all the time. And then for the moment, this is the way we're doing it because of the situation. But it's not the same thing, It's not the same thing as coming together as the people of God. Let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 4:35. Let's go open your Bibles right there where you are, Church of God. I know that I'm preaching here, and I want you to open your Bibles in the book of Mark, chapter 4. The Word of God reads in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I'm very, before I go into the Word, I'm very happy with all the personnel, everyone who's been helping Brother Clyde Gibson, Brother Luis Perez, Brother Roberto, Brother Edgar Perez, your co-pastor, Samuel Contreras. Thank you so much. Everyone and everyone else who's helped. Sammy, God bless you. His Jesus Jimenez, he's helped us too. So many people that helped. Wow, it's such a blessing. Thank you so much for the support you given this pastor here. And then without your help, first God, and without their help, we have not been able to bring this word. The Word of God says in chapter 4, that day, that when the night came, let us go to the other side, describing to the multitude. And when they were terrified and they were there, the Bible says, but one great tempest, got up, and in their boats with him, a furious squall came up. This is in verse 37. And the waves broke over the boat. And let's stay in verse 37 for a moment. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat. This is Mark chapter 4, verse 37. So that it was nearly swamped. Now, I'm speaking to you about these adverse times, these times of adversity, for us to have trust in God. And I will continue to speak about these themes in our lives, these subjects, these important matters of our lives that are so greatly important for us. And let me tell you something, that the circumstances of our lives, a lot of the times, it causes us to react in asking ourselves, God, are you going to help me get out of this? And these are the types of questions that we begin to inquire of ourselves and inquire of God. Are you going to help me get out of this? We tend to say that I am lost. I am condemned. There's no rescue for me, no safety for me. Well, let me tell you something. At the heights that we are in our lives, at times we tend to have, let's say, to get out and have that trust in God out of the circumstances that we have been hit hard with. And at times, even though we tend to be that way, at times doubt does come in sometimes. And doubt is trying to, for example, I want to place it in this way. It is trying to, indecisiveness, where you are battling with, trying to determine if it's going to happen or not. Doubt is the indecisiveness that you may have with one or two things in life, not knowing or having the lack of a conviction or distrust that you may experience when you, may have certain types of the lack of trust or distrust that we experience before certain actions that may come to your life or things that may transpire in your life. In Latin, there is a word, it's cubitare, which means the indecisiveness, indecisive in two things, undecidedly. So at times, what we do is we're very, indecisive, and we're thinking about, double-mindedness. Will God help me get out of this situation, or am I going to be, destined to destruction in the situation that I am in? And let me tell you something. If in these moments Jesus Christ allowed his disciples to navigate in the waters in the boat to a storm that was coming, if Jesus Christ allowed his disciples to steer into an incredible storm, the question is this: what then is the purpose of this experience, knowing that Jesus Christ is in the boat, and then knowing that the purpose that Jesus allowed the disciples to navigate into that storm approaching, Jesus himself being in that boat? One of the things that Jesus did is that he moved his disciples to ask him, who is him? Who is this? Who is him? Who is this man that the winds and the high tides and the ocean obey him? So we are in Mark chapter 4. And then they feared. In verse 41, they were terrified and asked each other, who is this? And one of the things that Jesus Christ asked the disciples, who do they say that I am? Who do they say that I am? So one of the things that Jesus Christ did is that the men would respond to him, and not based on who Jesus was, but based on the deity of Jesus Christ. And when Jesus Christ asked the disciples, then they gave different responses, but Peter gave an answer, a response: you are the Son of the living God. And he knew, inspired in the Spirit, he knew that in the faith be placed in him for salvation and the deity of Jesus Christ. And how amazing is that? It was a confession about the godhood, the deity of his great Savior. And that is what Jesus Christ wanted for the disciples to understand, that Jesus Christ was or is their Savior. And listen to this. And Jesus Christ, he demonstrated during this time to his disciples when he calmed the storm. There are three very important things that I want to explain to you. In calming the storm, it made very important results that here I want to talk about. That number one, that he is sovereign and that he has all the power over nature. And secondly, in order to reinforce the faith of his followers, and also that Jesus, our Lord, he is concerned about all the trials, all the anxieties, all the worries of our lives. The Lord wanted his disciples to understand that it doesn't matter the situation, that it doesn't matter the storm that we are experiencing. Jesus was there for them. I want you to listen to the church, people of God. People, it doesn't matter what storm you are facing. It doesn't matter how terrorizing the storm may be. Jesus has the power to free you and to produce that certain calm And I gotta say this again, church, because this right here is very interesting. Because we don't understand why is it that Jesus Christ allowed the disciples to navigate into this storm. And let me tell you something. And in the boat, they were prepared. They were marine. They were people, men of the sea. They were mariners, and they understood how to fish. They were fishermen. And let me tell you something. They were fishermen, experienced in the sea, but they were not able to cope with the storm. They were not able to manage the situation. And let me tell you something. This is a very interesting point because we think that we are so self-sufficient. We are so self-independent, reliant on our own strength and our own capabilities. And a lot of the times, God has to allow us to go through the storms of life so that we may learn again to lean on Him, to depend on God. So I want to say this again to you. It doesn't matter what storm you are facing, what test you are facing, what affliction you're going through. Jesus has the power to aid you and to produce in you the calm that you need in your life. Let me tell you something. You may be indecisive or you may feel distrust, but let me tell you something. Do not make any situation too quickly, too in a hurry. Depend on God. I want to go to another state. I want to do this or that instead. Take it easy. Calm down. God has everything under control. The Bible says in the book of John, chapter 14, peace I leave you, peace I give to you. My peace I give to you. I don't give peace as the world does. Do not be anxious in your heart. Now, what a word. What a word that God, in this crisis that we're going through, in the midst of the situation, the pandemic, do not be afraid. Do not your heart be in distress. Listen, church. This peace of Christ, this peace of Christ, this peace of our God, in first place, it is a peace that is so deep, it is so profound. You're going to feel this peace inside you, there in your chest and deeply, there profoundly. You're going to feel that in the depths of your body, of your life. It's going to be a peace that is a calm under the circumstances or the situations of life. Let me tell you something. It's more than only an emotional feeling, inclusively more than a thought or mere thought, but it is the peace of conquest, the overcoming peace. And the Lord told His disciple, in the world you will have affliction, but trust in me that I have overcome the world. It is the peace that no agony, no peril, no suffering, and no experience can take away from you. It doesn't matter what happens around you. I will go to bed in peace, and in the same manner, I will awaken. Oh, praise the living God, because the Lord gives us peace. It doesn't matter what has come to your life. It doesn't matter the news that you have received. There is peace for your life from God. It is the peace that overcomes. It is the peace that no agony, that no danger, that no suffering, that no experience can take away from you, because that's the peace that the Lord giveth to you. With your permission, I'm going to drink a little bit of water. Well, I want to tell you, let us, as we go back to Mark, let us go to verse 35, where the Lord tells him, let us go to the other side. He said to His disciples, the Lord, in Mark chapter 4, verse 35, let us go over to the other side. Jesus had a plan with His disciples. A plan that did not include their destruction. It didn't matter how tough this storm was. God had a purpose for them. He had an intention for them. I want you to listen to this. It doesn't matter what storm you're crossing. It doesn't matter the tempest that you are going through. God has a purpose for your life. I want you to hear this word for your life. God has a purpose for your life. The Lord showed or taught his disciples a great lesson, as the Lord gave his disciples a very important instruction. In verse 35, the Lord told the disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." And they should have taken this declaration, and I want you to listen to this, as the guarantee of a safe passage to the other side. It doesn't matter what's happening in your life. We have the guarantee, the assurance that we will be secure in God. We're gonna go to the other side. It doesn't matter what is happening around us. The Lord has given us the guarantee of a safe passage, of a safe crossing over to the other side. And this very important point is this, that the Lord Jesus Christ was with them in the boat. And I want to stop here for a moment, because at times we forget that Jesus is with us in the storm, that Jesus is in the boat of our lives. And the Bible says in Mark chapter 4, verse 30 and verse 37, he was, at the first squall came up, they said, "Lord, you have no teacher, don't you?" Verse 38, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping in the cushion, and the disciples woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Well, let me tell you something. When the storm, they unleashed, and all the fury of the storm were unleashed upon the boats, upon their lives, where the storm was really hitting them hard, where they felt that agonizing terror. Remember this, that the four apostles on the boat, they were on the boat, they were fishermen from their youth. They understood the Galilean Sea and the storms that affected the area at times and suddenly came upon that region. And let me tell you something. I want you to take notes of this right here. Take notes. No distractions in your life right now. This is very important. The Lord tried their faith. He tested their faith in their daily way of life. Their faith were tested in something or a way of life that they understood. They were, they were understanding of what they were doing, the type of life. They were professional fishermen, and Jesus Christ tested them in something daily, the daily life that they did, something like a daily practice. They knew this lifestyle, something very simple, a daily lifestyle application. Jesus Christ, he tested, he tried his disciples as fishermen. And let me tell you something, the trials of life really, demonstrate to us how useless we are in depending on ourselves. And we can say, "I know how to manage this situation. I know how to guide this. I have this under control. I have the skills. I have the ability. I have the managerial skills to do this." Let me tell you something, that is a rupture type of thinking. These were fishermen. They knew how to fish. They spent days fishing, and they were tried and tested in their own lifestyle, in their own way of life, in their own capacity. And Jesus Christ, he wanted to try and make them understand how futile their own, capacity and skills were for them to depend on themselves. And even though we think that we have everything certain for us and everything is secure for us, and we have security in the Lord through these trials that he allows, God is the one that gives us the capacity, the ability for us to get out of the situations that we endure. And I want you to listen to this important thing, the arrogance. I don't want you to feel bad, but I gotta say it. The Lord makes us humble. The Lord humbles us in the adversity of life. God takes away the pride. God takes it away, that self-sufficiency, that self-independence. God utilizes all those situations so that we may grow closer to God more humbly. The Lord teaches his disciples how to be humble people. That even though they knew what they were doing as fishermen, they were incapable to be able to withstand and to be able to overcome this trial in their life without him. Wow. Wow. And on the other side, when they were trying to battle against the storm to try to control the boat and cause, make it not drown or be swamped, the Lord was sleeping while they were battling. They were struggling, and the boat was completely swamped with water. They were about to drown, it seemed, and the sea was raging. The tides were high. The storm was hitting them all over, and the disciples were about at the brink of death, while Jesus Christ was calmly resting. And this right here, where he was sleeping, it seemed to them as seemed to be somewhat irresponsible to them, where they went and ran to him while he was in the stern. He was sleeping on the cushion. Lord, we are about to drown. We're about to die. We're trying to fight for survival. You are sleeping on a cushion. Wow, wow, wow. And you are sleeping. And look at how they woke him up. They woke him up in such a really harsh way, filled with accusations. And then how is it that you come to God? How do you call on God? How do you get God's attention? How do you invoke him? Lord, are you working in my life? What are you doing with my life? How do you come to God? Are you arrogant? Are you prideful? Etc. etc. And are you too harsh with God in the way that you call to God? God, when are you going to get me out of this? When are you going to heal me from this? When are you going to heal me? When are you going to help me? Let us be humble. Let us be people who are humble in God. Let us be people who are respectful and humble. And they accused him. How could you be sleeping? How are you taking it easy in the midst of this storm? Wake up. Help us. Do something. I want you to listen to this, church. Many times, we cross difficult situations in life. And we have the impression that God does not care about our difficulties. Have you not noticed when we go through trials, then we are very observant about everybody else. Everybody knows what you're going through. Everybody knows about your situation, your dilemma, your problems. But God doesn't know about it because you haven't told him. You don't tell God. You don't pray to God and let him know what's going on in your life. May God help us. And we like to respond to our own prayers. Or we don't see or feel that response, to our prayers when Elijah found himself in the midst of, this affliction and battling about with the Baals. Your God is dormant. Your God is sleeping. You think that God is sleeping. You think that God is not doing anything for you. I want to tell you something. How Peter understood and how he learned in this situation and many others' situation, Peter understood this, casting all of our worries on him because he cares for us. And why is it that Jesus was calm? He was tired. Jesus needed to rest. Jesus was working with a people that was very tough, their hearts were hard. And Jesus, in the midst of the storm, Lord Jesus, he knew he was at peace because God his Father was with him. And he knew that God would not forsake him or allow him to be drowned in that storm. And let me tell you, when the squalls came, the winds, the tides, and the waves that broke over them, over the boat. But let me tell you something. That noise was not capable of waking up Jesus. The only thing that was able to awaken Jesus was that harsh crying out of desperation from his disciples. All the wind was making all the noise. The waves of the sea was hitting the boat, making all this noise. And the boat seemed like it wanted to turn over. But Jesus was sleeping through all of that. And then suddenly the disciples called Jesus, and then Jesus woke up. Jesus was with them. And let me tell you something, that Jesus is with you too. And let me tell you something, in this small boat, they entered into panic. And they shouted to him, "Teacher, do you not care if we drown?" They were afraid because in the storm that was threatening their lives to destroy them, it appeared that Jesus did not care, that Jesus did not realize what was happening into the lives of his followers. And let me tell you something. There are moments in our lives that unnecessary fears overcome us or they confront us in our very lives. But let me tell you something. That in the book of Matthew, chapter 14, we see a Peter walking above the waters. We see a Peter walking above the waters when suddenly a strong wind, he was afraid. It hit him. And he was afraid. And he began to drown. He said, "Lord, Lord, save me." And the Bible says that suddenly Jesus reached out to him and told him, "Man of little faith, why did you doubt? Man, you, O man of little faith." And Peter's faith was, was all over the place. It wasn't, firm. And his hope of being saved, he knew that Jesus loved him. He knew that Jesus could save him. He had his eyes placed on Jesus. Now, what the problem is here in Peter, that he distracted himself and did not keep his eyes on Jesus, and that he focused then on, on the storm, on the winds that were beating up against him. And he departed his eyes from Jesus, and now his faith began to debilitate. And that's where it occurred that his faith was dwindling, was going down. I want to give you some counsel, some advice. We need to depart our eyes from what is happening in this moment. We need to remove our eyes from what is happening. The problem is this, that you need to continue to look at the Lord your God. Do not allow your faith to be debilitated or weakened. The psalmist said, "This poor man cried out to God, and the Lord heard him, and he freed him from all his agonies." I want you to hear this. The answer to the storms of life is the presence of God in us. And the Bible says that we are kept by the power of God through faith to obtain salvation. Jesus, he saved Peter, and he admonished him as his indecisive faith or unfirmness in his faith, and that he has admonishing and correcting people. It's in guiding people whose faith is down. It doesn't matter your level of faith or your condition. The Bible says that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can tell this problem to go to go away, and it will go away. How many times have you felt that way? Lord, you don't care for us. We are drowning. Life, it seems to be a tempest type life or a stormy life. It seems that you are going to perish or drown in this desperation. And in your desperation, you cry out to God and say, "God, don't you love me, Lord? Don't you love me enough to do something in response to this pain that I'm feeling, that I'm experiencing?" Let me tell you something. That God is our companion in the middle of the storms of life. Let me tell you something. That God is your companion in the midst of the storm. Isaiah tells us that when you go through the waters, I will be with you. And if you go to the rivers, they will not harm you. When you go through the fire, you will not burn, and the flame will not burn you. Because I, the Lord, am your God. In Mark chapter 4, verse 40, he said to his disciples, and then he immediately he arose and he quieted the storm. Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. And in the middle of the storm, when Jesus rebukes the storm, he directs himself to his followers and says, "Why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" He didn't scold them. It was a type of rebuke in a sense that it doesn't matter the storm that they are going through, that if they have faith, that trial is going to be, taken away from their life. God has given them, and God has given us the capacity for us to trust in Him. And He expects us to use it in the middle of anything that may come our way. And God gives us, peace, and full peace. The one who has their thoughts in you, in Him, that you had trusted in Him. And I want you to listen. These are the type of feelings or sentiments that we may be accompanied with when we feel in our lives and tend to think the worst thing possible, right? And a lot of the times, we're going to ask ourselves a ton of questions, perhaps 1,000 questions that we don't seem to have an answer to. But let me tell you this. The answer to all of this is to trust in God. To trust in God. This is not the end of you. This is not the end. Is this the beginning of birth pains? Yes. But as believers in Christ, let us have the trust in God. Satan, your adversary, your enemy, he loves to cause you to believe that it's hopeless for you. But the Bible tells us in chapter 10, the thief did not come here but to rob and to kill and destroy. But Jesus came. But Jesus said, "I have come so that you may have life and have life in abundance." The Lord has authority above all things. And I want you to remember this. God has control. And God would allow those that love God that all things will help him out or work out for the good. It doesn't matter what is happening. It doesn't matter what is going on in your life. God has everything under control. So then, we should remain in the lane following God no matter what. That knowing that when God is with us, we are going to be able to get to the other side. It doesn't matter what is happening in our lives. It doesn't matter how dire, how serious is the difficulty. We will recover from this. We're going to recuperate from this, and the latter state will be better than that which we have experienced. I got to say this again. We're going to recover from this. Our latter state will be better than the present state that we are enduring. And I'm almost done, church. When Paul was traveling to Rome in the book of Acts 27:13, so forth, the Bible says that he almost lost it all. He seemed like he was going to lose everything because a storm, rose up, and they almost lost their lives and drowned in it. And Paul exhorts them to be encouraged, and he tells them there will be no loss of life. Only the boat will be shipwrecked, and tells them the reason and encourages them that in the midst, of the storm, even though it was shipwrecked, the ship was, we will lose everything that we have here, everything material, but none of you will lose your life. You know what Paul told them? That because the angel of the Lord and this night has visited me. Because the angel of the Lord has told me. The angel of God has told me, Paul, do not be afraid. Oh, praise the living God. Worship God, people. And God is telling you this time, do not be afraid. It may be that you're losing a lot of material things. You may have lost your job in the midst of this situation. The angel of the Lord is telling you, do not be afraid. I am with you. I want you to hear this, church. God is talking. What am I going to tell you? Allow the adversity to motivate your faith to action and not for you to be drowned in it. But allow your faith to be motivating you in action or not in questioning. Now, if you do it and you for God to allow through all of that adversity to reveal any area in your life that you had to improve instead of you being afraid. There are lives in our lives that we had to trust in God. Whether it may be in our finances and our spiritual life, wherever it may be, we had to put our eyes on God. And when the difficult times come, instead of trying to find a hiding place or a safe place, other than in God, you need to trust in God. The more that you depend on God, greater will be your faith. Isaiah 59:1 says that the hand of God had not been cut off to save, his ear has been cut off to hear. Get up in the name of Jesus. God is with you. God is with you. I know it's not easy for a lot of people. It's a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of loss of sleep. Let me tell you this, that God is there and you're there at home. I know that you have received this word from God. Receive Christ as your Savior. God is with you. He's going to give you strength. I'm not talking to you about religion. I'm talking about God sent his only begotten Son so that anyone who believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Please open up your heart to God. Receive Christ as your Savior. If you're going through family issues or family problems or whatever problem you're going through, God is going to help you. He's going to give you a solution. He's going to get you a way out to recover. And if you're doing that right now, that the Lord may write your name in the book of life, and with open arms, he receives you as a child of God. And so we wait for you here in this church in 711 4th Street, West Liberty, Iowa. That we will see you soon, worshiping God. That we will be here gathered together, church of God. The church is not finished. Yes, we have gone through many different, situations. Many people have gone through a lot of tough times, but it doesn't matter how we are. How we're coming together to, to worship God and to listen to His Word. We're together though, through this medium, this way. And don't forget, church, any donations. I know that the church is, we need any donations, any gifts that you want to give. We'll be really, grateful. And I know you'll do it with your heart. Let us pray. So Monica Rangel asked for Sylvia Martinez. Father, in the name of Jesus, we're praying for Sylvia Martinez. Present yourself in her life, Father God, that you may encourage her, that you may heal her in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. All of them, Father God, that need you, Father God, I pray that you may enter into their lives. Father God, in the name of Jesus, a hug and embrace to all of you. Hugs, kisses to all of you. We will see you soon.
Aunque mis ojos no te puedan ver, te puedo sentir. Sé que estás aquí. Aunque mis manos no pueden tocar tu rostro, Señor, sé que estás aquí. Y mi corazón puede sentir tu presencia. Tú estás aquí. Tú estás aquí. Puedo sentir tu majestad. Tú estás aquí. estás aquí. Mi corazón puede mirar tu hermosura. Tú estás aquí. Tú estás aquí. Puedo sentir tu gran amor. Tú estás aquí. Tú estás aquí.